Hi, you. It's me, Nicole Phoenix Star, and this is a Nick Star podcast. I have been kind of jumping around on this week's topic, and I have settled on the concept of self betrayal because yesterday I had 3 separate conversations with 3 different people around 3 different subjects. And the core root issue was self betrayal. And I really feel like this is the primary issue for all people who find themselves in patterns and loops and, things happening over and over again, or not being able to stick to something, or not being able to achieve something, or not being able to move beyond something. And, it's such a slippery slope. And I gave the example of one example was around was a wellness student, and she we talked about why she you know wasn't able to stick to a plan and found herself in this spiral, even though she may have done some food prep or whatever. And I said to her, so, you know what you tell yourself you're going to do, you didn't do. She's like, yeah. I said, so your word doesn't mean very much. And her eyes kind of got bigger. And I said, so, if your husband or your child or your staff or a friend told you that they were going to do something and they didn't, then you would be like upset with them because they went against their word that they said that they would do for you or whatever. And she goes, yeah. And she goes, if one of my staff did that, I'd be like, so, you know, I'd be straight onto them. And I said, but you did the same thing to yourself. Her eyes got bigger. And I said, you can't be trusted. You say you're going to do this stuff for yourself and you don't. So we can't trust you. She's like, no. And I said, the way you behave to yourself, you would never put up with anybody else. She goes, no. She goes, you putting it this way just completely flips everything. Like, I am so proud of my integrity in the workplace. I'm so aware of how I show up for my family, but it's not congruent with how I show up for myself. And with all of them, I'm like, you always put yourself last. And this, whole martyr mindset that a lot of women have, like, oh, I just got to look after the children first, or make sure that, this is done and that's done, and then I'll do me. I always say, you're going to be a better mother, you're going to be a better wife, you're going to be a better partner, you're going to be more efficient at work, if you just put you first. Like, the way you're going to be able to show up in relationships and in everything you do is going to be so much more productive and aligned when you look after you as number one. And it's really hard to break that pattern because it's so ingrained. We have so much conditioning around serving others and all of that. And it's just nonsense. And at the base core of the whole thing is self-betrayal. And it's every conversation I had, I'm like, so we can't trust what you're going to say about yourself? And they're like, nope. And I said, but can we trust what you're going to say at work, to your family? Absolutely, without a doubt. So why is it that you're going to let yourself down? Why is it that you cannot be trusted, that your word doesn't mean anything when we apply it to you? And it just was startling, but the most obvious thing in each and every conversation. And I just kept saying, the same thing repeated in every conversation I was having. And I was just like, for me, it was such a loop. For years I let myself down. I kept saying, I just need to be disciplined and I'll do this thing. And then I failed. And so that, went on a downward spiral and you kind of give up, and quite often you just think, oh, well, I failed, and you just end up going deeper into the self-betrayal. And I became aware of those patterns. It wasn't from a lack of will. It wasn't from a lack of discipline. It wasn't from forcing myself to show up. It was actually kind of flipping it and going, if I treated myself like I did any other relationship or whatever, how am I going to show up? What integrity can I have with the relationship with myself? And you work on the integrity of this relationship. And it changed everything. And so I realized that I eventually was able to trust myself. I always did what I said I would for me, to me, as I would with someone else. I never broke my promises to myself. And it was just a game changer for everything. And it completely dissolved, the addictive tendencies that I had. I completely annihilated my alcohol addiction that I had for so many years through this practice of really honoring my word. It just took all the spiral issues away, and I kind of forget about it because it's been so many years. And I kind of yesterday was doing some inquiry and reflection on all of this. And I was like, when was the last time you let yourself down? And I was like, looking. I can't even remember. Like, it's been years, perhaps even over a decade. I never have to wonder whether I'm going to follow through or not. Like, to have your own back without ever having to question that, like, that is freedom and that is liberation. And when you really look underneath why someone can't follow through on their commitment to themselves, why they can't follow through on saying what they're going to do for themselves, it's all the same thing, like self-worth. Oh, I don't matter as long as they're fed. Oh, I don't matter as long as, that's done for them. Oh, I don't matter. I just got to meet the commitment with my boss. It's just like, it's crazy. And the lack of identification of the same thing just keeps everyone showing up going, right, I'm going to be disciplined this time. And it's not recognizing that you're not trustworthy. Like, you're not. you will let yourself down, because you always do, because you don't prioritize yourself, because you put everything first. It's it's a fundamental key to freedom and liberation, of eliminating suffering, because it's such a blow when you let yourself down and you spiral into levels of suffering. But it's such a habit and you get so used to it. You don't recognize it as the same deep hurt as if someone else breaks their word with you. And to be able to just sit in awareness and go, I've broken my word with myself. I've broken my own trust. And just prioritizing one step at a time, moment to moment. Because it's not an instant change when you've been doing it your whole life. Practice makes progress. And recognizing where you call yourself out, where you recognize the pattern without going into a spiral of complete giving up. Oh, well, I didn't, follow my meal plan today, so I'll just eat that whole bag of crisps or candy, or I'll just drive through this takeaway because I've screwed up anyway. So might as well keep going. Might as well do it well. All of these crazy things happen, and it's just ultimately at its core self-abuse. It really is. And to have that realization that you can't be trusted when you make a commitment to yourself. You have a willingness to just not show up or not follow through. And if you put that parallel next to anyone else's behavior, you would never, ever allow the same level of behaviors to ever happen. And so I want anyone, and most people have some version of this going on somewhere. Anyone in suffering, quite often it's at your own hand, to really sit with this and to really, observe your own patterns and your own behaviors. And call yourself out when you're letting yourself down. Call yourself out where you don't have your own back. Call yourself out where you put yourself at the end of the line of priority. And keep reminding yourself that putting myself as number one is not selfish. Putting myself at number one is not arrogant. Putting myself at number one is going to allow me to show up in all relationships and all that I do in a greater capacity until it's locked in, until it's part of your operating system. Because from that place, to know that your word is impeccable, to know you are not going to let yourself down, and to know that you have your own back, oh my God, it's indescribable to never have to hope that you will do that thing ever again, knowing that you absolutely will, because why would you let yourself down? Why would you hurt yourself? Why would you ultimately self-abuse and treat yourself so unkindly? It's such a common thing with so many people. And it's a root cause of so many things. So I invite you to really look at your relationship with yourself and how you show up to it and how much you can be trusted in it, because it's huge. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast with anyone that you may feel benefit from it. My website is www.nickstar.com, NIKSTARR. Much love. Mwah.